finally, we have a few comedy shows to talk about, including a new multicam sitcom in the classic tradition starring George Lopez. We've also got the Blockbuster show on Netflix, which is a comedy, and a cartoon comedy as well, Zootopia Plus on Disney Plus. We've got a few others to talk about as well. Let's talk TV. Hey guys, Dan here. This is Dan Reviews It. Welcome to TV news and reviews for the week. A little bit behind, as I always am, but Thanksgiving week sort of pushed me back even further. But we've got 6 new shows to talk about, including Lopez versus Lopez with George Lopez and his real-life daughter starring in that one. We've got a Netflix comedy called Blockbuster from the people that brought us Superstore and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. We've got a new version of Dangerous Liaisons, the famous movie from back in the early 90s, as well as an import show called The Suspect. Little suspense there, some drama, a reality show about brunch, a cooking show created by Dan Levy from Schitt's Creek on HBO Max called The Big Brunch, and then Zootopia Plus as well, taking some of the side characters from that popular animated film years ago and giving them their own shorts series. But before we do that, of course, it is time for the news, so let's talk renewals and cancellations. The White Lotus is returning for season 3 on HBO. That is a surprise to no one. It's, one of their most successful shows in years. 10 Emmys for season 1 and 7.6 million viewers for the season 2 premiere a few weeks ago. This Fool will be back for season 2 on Hulu with another 10 episodes. This has 100% on Rotten Tomatoes. I gave it a B+. It's one of those shows that's not really being talked about, kind of like Reservation Dogs sort of was critically popular like this is, and got maybe a little more buzz. But again, Hulu, if it's not like on Netflix, I feel like sometimes the comedies sort of get brushed under the rug, or I guess there's higher profile ones with like bigger stars or reboots like Saved by the Bell and stuff like that. But This Fool is a very funny show, so check that out. And a show that's ending before it ever even began. David E. Kelley's new drama Avalon, starring Neve Campbell, is dead at ABC. Interesting because David E. Kelley has Big Sky on ABC, which has been wildly successful for them in terms of a new drama with not existing intellectual property. It's currently in its 3rd season, so I'm surprised that they did not want to work more with David E. Kelley, because he is branching out to streaming as well, so it was kind of a big coup to get him for Big Sky in the first place. But anyway, I don't know if that show will end up elsewhere. I believe they did shoot the pilot for it, but I think that's all. So maybe another network or something will pick it up. All right, over to some announced shows. CBS has ordered a single-camera comedy pilot called Brutally Honest, starring Ashley Tisdale. It is loosely inspired by Tisdale's own life, exploring how a baby can ruin, save, change, and destroy your marriage all before lunch. The team behind Trophy Wife and Booksmart, oh my God, I love Trophy Wife, one of my favorite one-season shows, will pen the script for the pilot, and Tisdale will exec produce. She was recently on a CBS sitcom as well called Carol's Second Act, which was a multi-camera show starring Patricia Heaton that I thought was all right. I did end up watching the whole season for that. So she could be returning to CBS with that one. HBO's The Sympathizer has been ordered to series. It's part espionage thriller and part cross-culture satire. And I think, well, usually I don't talk about sort of pilots. So this is more in, I guess, casting news than show news, because this show was announced last summer. But now they have some big star power behind it in Sandra Oh and Robert Downey Jr. They're going to be sort of the 2 main stars of that. Netflix bringing a Judy Blume favorite to the small screen, Forever, inspired by Blume's groundbreaking 1975 novel, which Mara Brock Akil, who created Being Mary Jane and Girlfriends, she is reimagining this for a new generation. The series will tell the epic love story of 2 black teenagers exploring romance and identities through the awkward journey of being each other's first. This is a book, and I imagine in the original 1975 book they were white kids, but regardless of that, this has been on some of the banned books list because of its frank discussion of teenage sexuality. So I have not read this one. I've read a few of the Judy Blume books back in my middle school and high school days, but not this one. But I have heard of it, and I know it's one of the sort of naughty books that always gets kind of talked about. All right, Jessica Chastain's turn as country music stars Tammy Wynette. In the forthcoming limited series, George and Tammy is going to be moved to Showtime. I'm not sure if we talked about this or not because I love Jessica Chastain, but this show was announced a while ago, but it was going to be a Spectrum original, and now we're going to see it on Showtime, and interestingly enough, Paramount Plus as well. I do think they're all kind of under that umbrella, not Spectrum, but Paramount and Showtime are under that umbrella of CBS and its subsidiaries or whatever that are all owned, I guess, by Paramount. So sort of makes sense to spread this one around. And then one more. This was actually announced a couple of months ago, but my buddy Tim was getting on me for not talking about some of the Disney Plus Marvel shows as much. And I admit I typically only look at one big source for all of my TV news, and I guess this one fell through the cracks for them as well. But Daredevil is coming back. Now, you may have heard about this because Charlie Cox, who played Daredevil in the Netflix show, returned at the end of, I think, She-Hulk. I haven't finished that season, but I think that's the show he appears in as Daredevil, or maybe not as Daredevil, but maybe as Murdoch, the alter ego. But this is interesting because it's going to be given, at least as of now, 18 episodes. I mean, that is largely unheard of for a streaming show. Netflix did a few comedies that had like 2 10-episode sort of half seasons. Like the Ranch was one of them. And I think there were a couple of them maybe. But 18 episodes. I don't know if this is going to be a half hour, an hour, but either way, I mean, Disney Plus has never done a season that long. Usually they're in the 10-episode sort of tradition. So this is more akin to a broadcast show, which is very, very cool. So, all right, in casting news, also speaking of Disney Plus, because this got moved there from ABC, but Cheryl Burke is leaving Dancing with the Stars after appearing on 25 of the show's 31 cycles. She was the first Dancing with the Stars pro to win twice, and even consecutively, she won twice. And Len Goodman, one of the judges, also leaving after this season. He has been the head judge since the beginning. I've not seen more than maybe 20 minutes of Dancing with the Stars ever. But I, of course, know these two names because they've been, mainstays on the show for a long time. Odds and ends. Let's go to there. And we've got some ratings stuff to talk about. Yellowstone Season 5 had the biggest same-day premiere of any series in 2022. Broadcast, cable, whatever, HBO, doesn't matter. Yellowstone Season 5 had 12.1 million same-day views. In this day and age, that's unheard of. And I know a lot of people that love this show. I have not yet seen it, but and I'm not sure if it's really up my alley. I'm not a huge Western fan, but a lot of people love this show. I know that. So just in same-day views, 12.1. So when you imagine the 7-day delay viewing on Paramount Plus or, whatever, wherever else you can find it, it's probably closer to like 18 or 20 million. But 8.8 of those same-day views came directly from Paramount Plus. But the show also had airings on Pop TV, CMT, and TV Land, plus encore airings later in the evening on those networks. The series also was up double digits in all demos. I mean, these numbers are, I'll say it again, it's unheard of in this day and age. 18 to 34, it grew 52%. So that's sort of like Breaking Bad, it started out sort of slowly, and then through streaming, people discovered the show, and then by like the last season, its numbers were enormous. I think that's what's happening here. It got sort of a slow start, maybe had some name power in Kevin Costner, but, is he a huge, star like he was 30 years ago? Maybe not. So maybe people were like, I don't know. But then they kept hearing about it, and then it kept airing everywhere, and you see the reruns. And so now, even the young demos are just, going crazy with this. So very, very cool for the Yellowstone crew. All right, Bellator, I think it's called, MMA, which is just, I guess, the company that runs MMA maybe, is coming to broadcast for the first time ever. In February, they will have a Ryan Bader fight that will air on CBS and Paramount Plus. Usually this is pay-per-view stuff. You have to either do the pay-per-view or go to a bar to see it, a sports bar or something, or occasionally they have like theatrical showings as well. of the live fights. But this is a whole new thing because, CBS. I mean, listen, what's funny about this is not that this is necessarily boxing, it's MMA, but boxing is one of the original, like, broadcast shows. They would run boxing matches all the time. All the stations had different boxing matches. I mean, we're talking like the late 40s, early 50s. That was a huge thing to run on TV. And then, I don't know, I guess probably in my childhood, in the 80s maybe, it turned over to like HBO, pay-per-view kind of stuff. I can't think of the last fight that was on broadcast television, be it boxing, MMA, whatever. I just can't think of it. So that is a big deal. Also, in sort of new up and coming kind of technology stuff, Netflix is testing live programming with a Chris Rock stand up special early next year. Don't really have a lot of word on that. Obviously, it will be available afterwards if you want to watch it, whenever. But his last special, Tambourine, is one of my all-time favorite comedy specials. I've seen it at least twice, and I've seen clips of it, that I'll just pull up randomly many, many times. So I'm excited about this. I don't, it's funny, I don't really care as much if he talks about the slap from the Oscars. At this point, that's kind of old news. I just like to hear his musings on other things. I don't think we need to revisit that well over and over and over again. I don't know if that will be part of his upcoming routine, but anyway, I'm all in on that. I love Chris Rock and his stand-up. Mindy Kaling is going to receive the Norman Lear Achievement Award at the PGAs. That's the Producers Guild Awards on February 25th. The award is recognizing a producer or producing team for their extraordinary body of work in television. Now listen to the list of people she follows here. Greg Berlanti, Marta Kauffman from Friends, Amy Sherman Palladino, who did Gilmore Girls and Mrs. Maisel, Ryan Murphy, Shonda Rhimes, Dick Wolf, the Law & Order stuff, Jerry Bruckheimer, Lorne Michaels, Aaron Spelling, David E. Kelly, and it was originally named for Norman Lear himself. I guess he won the first one maybe, but that is really cool. I love Mindy Kaling. I don't know if she's ever turned in a bad show. I guess I didn't love Four Weddings and a Funeral, that miniseries she did, but obviously her work on The Office speaks for itself, but then The Mindy Project and Never Have I Ever on Netflix, The Sex Lives of College Girls on HBO Max. These are all like, top tier shows. So very happy to see her getting some recognition. Her book is great too. I think she actually might have two by now, but the first book she wrote, I loved. I didn't read the second one, but it's called something about like, are people talking about me behind my back or something like that, some sort of self-deprecating title. All right. And then the first ever Children's and Family Emmy Awards are set for December 10th and 11th. This is the first time in about 30 years that they've had an extension of the Emmys, because of course we have the primetime Emmys, but then the daytime Emmys have been around a long time, and I guess maybe there's some other side Emmys, but Children and Family, which makes sense because with all the streaming stuff, a lot of things don't really fall into primetime Emmy or daytime Emmy anymore, right? They sort of put things in the categories that make sense, but since you can watch things around the clock on streamers, a lot of it is just sort of like, well, where do we put this? It's not really daytime or nighttime, it just exists. So leading the pack for the inaugural run is Netflix with 83 nominations, including The Babysitter's Club, Waffles and Mochi, and Heartstopper, which I think is interesting because that is a high school show about queer love that is fairly no holds barred. I guess it is, now that I'm thinking about it, I guess maybe it is sort of family friendly in the sense that I don't think there's a lot of like swearing or anything, but I don't know, like as a gay guy in his 40s, like when I think about in the 80s, you couldn't even say the word gay basically on any kind of family show. And that went for a long, long time into the 90s and early 2000s probably too. But, I can't imagine a gay character on Sesame Street or anything like that. So it's a whole different world. So I love that that's part of the family Emmys. But also Disney Plus and its subsidiaries, which include Disney Channel and Disney Junior, have scored 76 nominations. Apple TV with 17, and I always say Apple TV has the best kids programming, honestly. And then HBO/HBO Max and Nickelodeon each have 13 going into the inaugural run. So we might go over the winners of that and some of the major categories in a couple of weeks. All right, and then finally in news, we've got reboots and spinoffs. Good Night and Good Luck. This is a movie adaptation into a show. It's getting the miniseries treatment at AMC. It's got they have sort of a writer's room development even at the early stages. So they have already created a writer's room for this. Whether it will make it to the air, I don't know. But I loved this movie as a communications major and a former radio DJ. I really loved this movie. But no word if Clooney has a producer credit or anything on this, but he co-wrote the movie with his writing partner Grant Heslov. So I imagine they have something to do with it. But in any event, AMC is eyeing it just as a 6-episode miniseries that will be produced in-house with AMC Studios. All right, so let's move over to the reviews. We're going to start with our pair of comedies. Lopez versus Lopez is first. This is on NBC Friday nights with their 1 hour of comedy that they have going on right now. It's this and Young Rock. When I was a kid, I mean, NBC was the place for comedy. You had, of course, your Thursday night lineup with Cosby, Night Court, Cheers, Family Ties, and then later on, Friends, Seinfeld, Will and Grace, Frasier, Scrubs, all of those great shows. But they also had Wednesday night and Tuesday night where it was like all comedy from 8 to 10, like 3-4 nights a week. Veronica's Closet, Mad About You, Caroline in the City. It was just all over the place. And then even ABC, a couple of nights. CBS had usually Mondays and Wednesdays, I think. Anyway, now we're down to 1 hour on NBC for comedies. And Lopez versus Lopez is one of them, and it's a multi-camera comedy. And it basically stars Lopez and his daughter Mayan Lopez as themselves, and sort of extended characters or whatever you want to call it, exaggerated, personas, but kind of not really, because it's about how George was not really around for his daughter growing up, and how that affected her, and so that has played in heavily kind of to the plot here. Look, I'm really torn on this show because essentially the plot, I guess I should say even a little more about, he is down on his luck and he ends up moving in with her. And so they decided to kind of try and make amends that way. And she's very big in the social media stuff. So we see her doing like a lot of TikToks about her father and stuff like that. The reason I'm torn on this is because I want the return of multi-camera sitcoms. I think they can be great when done well. There hasn't really been too many good ones in the last decade, maybe. I mean, everybody's all about the single cam now. The Conners is a great show. I review those new episodes every week, but realistically, that is an extension of a 90s show, Roseanne. So, does that really count? I don't know. Sort of like when we had the Will and Grace reboot, it's like, yeah, but the original Will and Grace was also a multicam. So now NBC will be trying multicam again in January with the new Night Court. So I'm hoping good things for that because I love that original show. But this one just does not really work. And it has much less to do with the multicam stuff than it does the material. I think George Lopez is okay. I'm sure he's a very nice guy, but I thought it was sort of vaguely established that he's really not that funny. His original sitcom was all right. It's still probably on Nick at Night, and it did all right in syndication for a while. And his stand-up is okay. His talk show was all right. But this is just not working out. In the very first episode, in fact, I think in both episodes I watched, he did his classic, like, white teenage girl bit. Oh my God, that's a Lopez classic from the 30 years ago. It's like, are we still doing that? Like the whole Valley Girl thing? Like, my God. So that's that. And then they played War's Lowrider on his daughter's TikTok in the beginning of the first episode, which is not the theme song to this, but of course it was the theme song to the George Lopez show years ago. So, the audience just went crazy. And I don't think it's even a live audience. I think it's canned. I think it's canned laughter. But they, of course, went crazy. And it's like, okay, is that really all we have to offer is sort of some nostalgia here? I will admit I did laugh. I had a hearty laugh, at least one, in each of the first 2 episodes. But we need more than that. I can appreciate what the show is going for, and I love that they're, trying to do a return of multi-camera comedies, but, they canceled a multi-cam show last season that I thought was definitely better than this. That was the Kenan Thompson show. This, for me, left me just a bit cold. I think it's 20 years too late. He's trying to recapture a lot of that magic. His daughter actually is surprisingly decent as a comedic actress. We don't really know her from anything else, I don't think. But she actually plays pretty well off her father. But yeah, the script just wasn't there for me on this one. I leave Lopez versus Lopez with a D plus. Blockbuster is next. That is on Netflix. And when I originally announced the show, I think it was called The Last Blockbuster. But yeah, this stars Randall Park and Melissa Fumero from Brooklyn Nine-Nine, and that makes sense. This is from the creators and producers and stuff of Superstore and Brooklyn Nine-Nine, so it's got a lot of that same sense of humor. It is a workplace comedy for sure, and we see Randall Park as Timmy, the manager of the fictionalized version of the Last Blockbuster store. Netflix did a documentary on the actual Last Blockbuster, which is in Bend, Oregon. This one is in Michigan in this version, and it's interesting, because Netflix kind of killed video stores. I was working at Hollywood Video when Netflix came around, and they certainly had a hand in killing us. But yeah, so this is, I had higher hopes for this. It's okay. It's not great, though. Brooklyn Nine-Nine is, I think, probably the best comedy of the last decade, or at least in the conversation. Superstore, I'm still only about halfway through, but I have gone back to that a couple of times because I started watching it and I was like, I don't know. And then I went back to it to bring my buddy Tim up again. He was a big fan, and so I was like, all right, well, maybe I'll give it another try. And then I ended up, really liking it. I think I'm on season 4 maybe, but very funny stuff. So I kind of expected a lot for this show because of the pedigree. I like Randall Park from a few things that he's done. I like Melissa Fumero from Brooklyn Nine-Nine. What's JB Smoove is in it as sort of a recurring role. He sort of owns the strip mall, I guess, or at least their property in it. And so he's funny. I think there's potential here, but unfortunately, because it's Netflix, we're only getting I think is it 8 episodes, or did they actually give this one 10? Sometimes on a comedy they'll do 10. Okay, it does have 10. And David Caspi produces from, he did Happy Endings and this great show called Marry Me. So, a good pedigree with this show. I really just expected more. It's got some laughs, and it's got sort of that same type of humor as Superstore, kind of a bit witty, the different sort of archetype oddball characters. They're, a little one note at the start, but as the series goes on, you hope, okay, well, we'll learn more about these people and their lives, and that will fill us in more about okay, he's the weirdo, she's, the out of touch mom, et cetera, et cetera. So far though, I don't think the humor is quite there. So this is a bit more middling for me. It's not bad though. I think it's got potential. I just worry that with these 10 episode seasons on shows these days, do we have time to sort of build these characters, or is it going to stay in this sort of safe lane of, everybody's one note? Because so far that's kind of what I'm feeling about it. But I did laugh a few times, certainly more in this than the Lopez versus Lopez show. And I think it's a little bit maybe too similar to Superstore in the sense that, this is very, very blue collar workplace comedy. There was a retail, what do they call that? Like a Walmart kind of store, or Target or whatever. And then, here, a video store, but, they're leaning in a little bit to the dying aspect of it. And, who goes to video stores anymore? All right. I can appreciate that, but I'm also curious of what era this even takes place in, because there's references to more current things, but we all know Blockbusters went out of business 10 years ago. So I'm not exactly sure what year or era we're supposed to be in. It's a little bit confusing as of now. That doesn't necessarily affect my grade too much, but it was a little confusing because is this supposed to take place in 2022? I can't imagine that. So anyway, I believe Blockbuster with a B-. I see some potential there. I like the interplay. I like the characters, interacting with each other, but they need to really, really kind of expand some of the things in this show and the characters within to bump my grade up by the end of the season. All right, next, let's go to Stars for Dangerous Liaisons. This has already been renewed for season 2, about a week ahead of the season 1 premiere. They already gave it the green light for a second season. So this is based on a novel but then later it became a popular movie in, I guess, the early 90s. Um, and so, this takes place hundreds of years ago in Paris, and it's all about, this family and um, the tensions within, basically, and lovers turned rivals who are trying to basically ruin everyone around them, including the other one. Um, and so, yeah, it's about the French nobles and their depravity and all of that. And so with that depravity, there are a bunch of sex scenes in this show that I think are unimportant. They don't move the story along. They're not there for comedic effect like they are in The Great on Hulu, which is sort of similar, I guess. So that part just kind of left me like, all right, can we fast forward this? Like, I don't know. And I've touted this before, but I'm sort of sick of shows just doing sex scenes to do them. Oh, we're able to do them on streaming. Yeah, all right. Well, that's been the case now for like 8 years. So let's get over it. Let's move along. Give me some characters I can sink my teeth into. Now, I did not watch this movie because it looked boring AF. And I have to say, it probably was when I was in high school. If I were to watch it now, I would probably think of it a little bit differently because now that I've been, reviewing movies for a while, I look for sort of different things than I would have in high school. But I find this show also pretty boring, to be completely honest. I can't really get behind any of the characters. It's funny. I think it's weird that one of the greatest shows about this era that's on TV right now is The Great. Because that's really a comedy and it's more tongue in cheek. And I think the reason I like that so much is because it pokes fun at some of the things that they're trying to do in things like this, where it's just they take themselves way too seriously, and there's a little bit of kind of frivolity and fun with it, but not really. It's more of like at the expense of other characters and stuff like that. And it's kind of mean spirited in that regard. So yeah, I'm not gonna watch the movie for sure. I'm not gonna finish this season either. But I imagine the movie, even if I were to look for different things in it than I would have in high school. Okay, the costumes are great. The set design is great. The acting is great. I feel like I would still probably be bored with it if this show is any indication. So I leave Dangerous Liaisons with a C minus. All right, next, the other dramatic show to talk about, The Suspect. This was originally on ITV, but it is streaming now on, boy, that's a good question, AMC Plus, maybe? I honestly don't even know where I watched this. No, was it AMC Plus? Doesn't matter. You can look it up and figure it out, or I'll look it up before I post this video and put it down there in the bottom when I give you my grade. But basically, this is a mystery show about this woman who was found dead, stabbed 21 times, and placed in a shallow grave. And we're trying to figure out, some advice on the crime from this clinical psychologist named Joe O'Loughlin, played by Aidan Turner. But he is going through the early onset Parkinson's, and so he's being affected a little bit by that in his job. And the opening scene of the first episode is like riveting. It's about this guy on a ledge. He's going to commit suicide. So this guy comes up and, tries to talk to him and tend to him. But we find out sort of behind the scenes, oh, he's got some Parkinson's. Should he, if he starts having an episode, should he really be up there with this guy? And it was like this really great. And I didn't know what the subject matter of the show was. I just saw that it was a new show, so I turned it on. So I thought it was going to be all about that. And I will say, the Parkinson stuff does give us an interesting little wrinkle that I think is good to explore. And this is a quickie. I think it's only 5 episodes, right? Most international shows are so quick. There's 5 episodes. Although there could be more. It's not listed as a mini series specifically, but the Parkinson's gives us an interesting thing to talk about. It's a new angle that maybe we haven't seen in a police procedural, because everything else kind of with the mystery element is very routine. I was hoping that the rest of the show would be as engaging as that first scene. It is not. But I think there's some interesting character work here, and the mystery itself is decent. I don't think it's blowing me away, but if it's going to get wrapped up in 5 episodes, that's all right. That's better than some of these like season long arcs of 13 episodes or whatever. Maybe there will be less time wasted in this. I watched the first two, and I do find the mystery pretty riveting. And the lead actor, Aidan Turner, I think he's good. But yeah, I just wish the rest of it was as compelling as that first episode. Other than that, it gets a bit routine. So I will leave The Suspect with a B. All right, next we will talk about our two last shows are sort of the more fun ones in a less traditional sense. The Big Brunch is on HBO Max. This is hosted by Dan Levy and created by him as well, and includes him and two judges, Will Guidara and Soha El Whaley. I don't know these names, but I don't watch like cooking shows and stuff. They may be sort of famous in their own lane or whatever. But in any event, so we are taking 10 chefs against each other for a cash prize of $300,000. Kind of an odd amount. I think make it either 250 or 500. 300 is just sort of arbitrary. But these people were handpicked specifically because they all want to do something more with their craft. Be that, open up a cafe, or start a feed the homeless program or whatever. And so these were all handpicked by Dan Levy and the producers to be on the show. So I imagine it wasn't like they put out a casting call. I think they sort of sought people out in that regard. And I think that's interesting. I'm kind of getting into these cooking shows. It's funny. I never really watched them before I started doing these TV news and reviews. And I don't do all of them. Like, I still don't do them if they're on like the Food Network, because I feel like there's so many of those that could be its own separate program on my channel. But if it's on a major broadcast network, or if it's on a streamer that has some sort of like firepower behind it or whatever, like in this case Dan Levy. But we've done, what did I do, the Cooking with Cannabis on Netflix, and I don't even really smoke weed, but that was kind of fun. But yeah, I'm really sort of into the cooking shows. Over the pandemic, I guess this is part of it too. Over the pandemic, I started sort of honing my own crafts a little bit in the kitchen. I'm not good or anything, but there's 5 or 6 things I make that are fun, and I like making them, and I like chopping the fresh vegetables and all that. So I don't know. I have a new appreciation for shows like this, but I think this is an interesting twist because brunch is a fairly specific thing. I mean, but it can also be anything because it's breakfast / lunch. But there's certain things you certainly wouldn't associate with it. But I sort of like that concept of, okay, what does brunch mean to these people? And in the first episode, for example, I think each episode they'll do 2 different dishes, but first episode, the first sort of the appetizer part was a dish from where, from your past, a dish from like where you come from. And then the main was your future, a dish from where you see yourself going, and that leads back to sort of, in the beginning they told us, oh yeah, these people all want to do X, Y, and Z with their stuff. So this is probably one that I will watch till the end. I'm sort of invested in these characters, and I love Dan Levy. So yeah, this is another good cooking competition show. I give the Big Brunch a B+. And then finally, we will land on Zootopia Plus. This is on Disney Plus, as you would figure, and it is also, as you would figure, based on the characters from the movie Zootopia from, what was that, 2016 maybe? And I have been reviewing a lot of these shorts series on Disney Plus, and the good news about them is you can pretty much watch all of them, because they're usually only 6 episodes, maybe 8. But you can watch all of them within like an hour and 10 minutes or so, 15 minutes. So I watched all 6 of these. They're each like 8 minutes or less when you take away the end credits. And the interesting thing is they're all about the side characters from Zootopia. So far in the realm of sort of the shorts series, we've had Cars on the Road, which is Owen Wilson and Larry the Cable Guy as their 2 famous characters. Big Hero 6, you have actually the big robot, Baymax, helping people along the way. This one, they take the side characters like the Sloth and like the Mob family, and sort of give them their own little, kind of bit stories. Uh, and that's sort of for better or worse, because I think there's only a couple that I really enjoyed. Alan Tudyk as the one character singing in a musical, that one is great, and then the one with the sloth is very funny, as you might imagine from if you saw the movie. The other ones I was a little bit more hit or miss on. One interesting thing though about this show is the shorts theoretically take place um, at the same time as the movie does. So we see very very little. We have little recorded footage from Jason Bateman and the gal that plays Judy Hopps. From the main characters from the movie, they don't appear here, but in sort of archive voice footage, we do get to hear them in at least one of the episodes, maybe two. But everybody that played a character in the movie that's here is reprising their voices, including Idris Elba and Richard Kind. And so we've got some people that are familiar. Bonnie Hunt, rather, not Richard Kind. I'm sorry. Don Lake plays Stu Hopps. But yeah, I wish, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about the. I think it's an interesting idea that, like, okay, we're taking place, this is taking place while the events of the movie are going on, sort of in sequence. But I don't know. Maybe I could have enjoyed it more if we saw those main characters. Like I said, some of the episodes are really fun, and then the other ones I was like, yeah, all right. But they're over in like 8 minutes, so it's hard to kind of argue with it. But yeah, I feel like of all the shorts series so far based on Disney movies, this is probably my least favorite. It was still good to watch. I highly recommend. I think it's, let me look, episode 3, I think, is the one with Alan Tudyk doing the Duke Weaselton, which is of course a reference to the Frozen character he plays. But yeah, he gets caught by Judy. We saw that in the movie, and here he's like kind of singing a song about his luck and all of that, and that's a really really good one. The sloth one is really funny, but yeah, the other ones I just was a little bit lukewarm about. But I will give them credit for trying something a little bit different. It didn't work out the best for me, but I will leave Zootopia Plus with a B minus. All right, so that will do it. I'm so far behind, I know. I'm really going to try and catch up before the end of the year, at least the first week of next year. But we've got that new Sylvester Stallone show that recently premiered on Paramount Plus, and we've got a ton of other things to talk about here in the next few weeks. So thank you for watching. We'll see you next time on Dan Reviews It. Bye.